Maybe it'll be done by the time we post this, but
Nice.
yeah, welcome to another episode of the Rich Sony podcast. Today we got the guys from the Mythology band on the call. We got Brynen Sosa, Dave Lockhart, Jordan Morrissey. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I haven't done a band, like a full band, in a while, and I really enjoy these episodes. So
Yeah, these are always fun for me too. I always love the long form interview rather than like the little snippets that we get on social media. Although I know that's kind of the thing these days. Short form.
Yeah, they both have their place.
Right.
But I love the long form. That's why I've been doing this, right? You know, and it's been fun. It's fun to kind of. You all are a good case, right? Because I really haven't listened to you before we decided to do this. So it's like, okay, I have a few weeks. Let me just listen to a local band. I call it like good musical nutrition, right? Like I feel like I'm like drinking my craft brewery IPA of music for the couple of weeks, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I get to appreciate an artist, and then we get to talk about like all the nerdy stuff for like an hour or so, hour and a half, whatever.
Nice. We're nerdy. Trust me.
Good. One thing I noticed when I was doing my my deep dive was that the band lineup has changed over the course of the years, and I think it'd be cool to start with that. Do you want to kind of talk about how the band started and how it's changed over the years?
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure it was March of 2007, and I was 20 years old, maybe a few months away from being 21. And my previous band called Bebop and Rocksteady with my friend Brian, who I call him my bro. You know, he's a brother from another mother. He moved down to Florida when we were 19, so like a little bit after high school. We kicked around town for a couple years and lost a lot of brain cells and got into trouble and stuff. But then I was just itching to play again, and I had no outlet for it, but I was writing. I was constantly writing and composing songs, and I had gone to my old high school in West Milford, my old alma mater, West Milford High, and then I saw Dane Carmichael playing the bass with his band, which was what were they called? The Russo brothers.
The Russos, Johnny and the Russos.
They at that point they were called the Rob Deposit Band.
Oh, Rob Deposit, right? Yeah, that's right. That's what they were called.
I never liked that name, honestly.
Yeah,
but
it was a dumb name.
it's pretty awful. But I saw like Dane was just like, you know, kind of like he had those like Jocko chops, but he was playing like this blues rock stuff, and I just liked his playing so much that I approached him after the show and you know, asked if he'd want to play some songs, you know. And it was like, I got a whole bunch of material, let's get together, you know, if you want. And I knew Dane because the aforementioned Brian from Bebop and Rocksteady, Dane by happenstance was his next door neighbor. But he was a little bit younger than us. He was he's like 3 years younger. So he was still 17 in high school, and I was maybe 20, a little bit out of high school. And he actually suggested to me, well, do you have a drummer? And I'm like, no, you're the first person I've asked. And he said, well, what about Jay Turner? And I knew Jay because of I used to do the high school musicals with his older sister Audrey, and so I kind of knew the Turner family already by doing Hello Dolly and all and anything
Hello,
goes.
Dolly.
Yeah, and I always have a soft squishy spot for like Broadway and like musical theater and stuff like that. So I was like, oh yeah, I know Jay. And then we got together about a week later in like March of 2007, and I think I showed them the song Gone Astray from the first album, just to like not maybe not info dump on them right away, you know, kind of like an easier tune. And then I showed them the Sailor's Tale, which eventually it was like
24-minute song.
Yeah, live it was like 25 minutes. I think it ended up as the last song on our second record at like 17 minutes or something, but it was like this 6-7 part suite, very Dream Theater-esque, and it told a story. And I was just kind of like, how far can I get with what can I get away with these guys? Like how good are they? So after that, they both decided that it was something they wanted to do with me. And yeah, we just played a bunch of shows, and which is actually kind of how I met Jordan, doing like parallel shows. And
is that how we met? I actually don't remember the act of meeting you. It's really like that with like some of my closest friends. I don't remember meeting them. And then, but then random people, I can remember the exact moment I met them. It's really dumb.
I think I started talking to you, Jordan, at remember Coyote Cove?
Yeah.
That biker bar in West Milford that we used to play at.
Down the street from my house, yeah.
Which was, I think, the second gig we ever had was playing at that joint.
First, and the zombie gig was there, yeah. And
I started talking to you there, and you had mentioned how much you had liked my band. But I had a drummer.
I've seen you before.
Mm-hmm. You had to have, yeah, because you had mentioned that you enjoyed Mythology.
Okay, I remember this now. I think I remember seeing you at the coffee house.
Our first ever gig was at the coffee house.
And the zombie played at this too. There was like, okay, that was your first gig? That makes sense.
It was only a couple weeks after we started rehearsing. Like,
interesting, because see, I knew Dane because I went to private school with him. And he was a bunch younger than me, but I knew him because he was friends with one of my classmates' sisters, or brother rather. And so I knew Dane when he was a little kid. I think I first met Dane when he was like 8 years old or something. But yeah, so I remember seeing you guys play at the coffee house. We played, and then I came down and I saw you guys playing. And I was like, these motherfuckers are good. That's it. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah, and then we made 2 records with that lineup. That's Greatest Hits and Forever Endeavor, 2009, 2012, respectively. Jay became disinterested after a while and decided to leave. I remember that was fun because I could tell he just didn't want to do it anymore, and I was like, "You want to go to dinner?" And he was like,
"Totally,
yeah, we probably should, huh?" And so I took him to Chili's.
Really?
I think we got those like comically giant, alcohol drinks, and I was like, "Yeah."
I had one of those recently. They're still good, man.
I did not get the baby back ribs though, and I remember just being like, "Yeah, you're not into it anymore, are you?" He's like, "No," but I was like, "That's okay, man. Like, just go do your thing." And I remember one of the first things he did. Him and Ryan Riegler, a friend of his, they drove their bicycles across country.
Across the country, yeah.
And I was like, "Good, he's where he needs to be."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Well, who do I know that plays drums? Who do I know?" Oh, right, Jordan Morrissey. There's the only logical successor that's like into the same shit I am. personable. You know.
Well, I also filled in for him too. Officially,
yeah, there was like a few months of shows where he
had gotten a job in another state.
That's right.
But he's like, I'm coming back. So Brynen approached me. The first time he approached me was
you were a
he had
sub.
booked. Yes, I was a sub, and he had booked a bunch of shows already.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, "Can you play this, 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 and this?" And I said, "Yeah." So the first time I played with Mythology, actually, the first time I played with Mythology was, and we had talked about this already, but one of the first times I actually played live with them was at one of these shows that we used to do. I had another band called And the Zombie where I had to sing lead and play the drums and write half the songs and stuff. And so we would do shows sometimes with Mythology on a double or triple bill. And it was at the Lakeshore Inn. I still have a picture of this. And
I remember that place.
I think during your set, I came up and did, I think it was Falling Fast, I guess.
I think you did.
I'm sorry, it's Wolf War.
Wolf War was the first song you ever.
Mythology song I
Wolf
ever
War
learned.
1, because Wolf War 2 hadn't existed yet.
Later. But yeah, and so the first time I played with you, then I did a bunch of shows. I remember Mexicali was one of them, and a few other ones. And then I remember Jay came back, and then we did a few shows where we shared. I played one set, he played the other set. I remember where we would play at the same time, or I'd go behind him, and like, I remember we were doing one thing. He was feeding me food like while I was playing, and I have pictures of this too. No, really, he was.
Yeah.
And
like baby bird style or what?
Yeah, like I was like not quite like that, but
we were like the
it was like
four-man
an
trio
Apple Fest.
for a while.
And then we did a few gigs where we did both, and then he finally was done, and then he approached me to be in the band full time.
Yeah.
And I was technically though on the second album too.
Auxiliary. Yeah.
I did some percussion and I sang some background vocals. So I am on the second album. I just wasn't in the band officially yet.
Yeah, you just weren't on drum kit. You had done like percussion and
percussion and background vocals.
Yeah. Right. I'm remembering too. You all did an interview around the time of this, right? Because you recorded the third album. Or is it like the documentary thing that you have? I forget what. There was something where you're talking about how Jordan played auxiliary and then
came
into
probably
the
talked
studio.
about that.
That was probably at Gil's house. That was probably when
Yeah,
Mythology
probably.
3.
That thing.
Because the Mythology 3 was the first one with Jordan on
First record I was on.
drums. Yeah.
That's probably exactly when that was, for sure.
Yeah, that's probably the one we did at Gil's place.
Yeah.
Then how did Dave come into the picture?
So after a while,
Like the last paragraph on the wiki page.
Mm-hmm.
but not the least.
But Dave wrote it.
Yeah, by Dave Lockhart. Citation by Dave Lockhart. Yeah, Dane after a while also became disinterested, and he wanted to, get married and do that thing, and kind of leave music as more of a fun hobby thing, I think. So we had a guy filling in after Dane, he was also named Jordan, but that was Jordan Stackhouse. He played bass in the group for about a year, and really excellent player.
Great guy.
Yeah, good guy. But he didn't want to get involved in the recording project, so he left the group right before we were about to start recording The Story of Sound. And so here I am scrambling with, maybe 21 to 25 days before we have to be in the studio. And Dave and I were always kind of two ships in the night, kind of knowing of each other and maybe playing in the same projects at certain times, like
a handful of gigs, a handful of rehearsals.
Yeah. And so I called him up and said, "Hey, do you want to be on this record playing, electric and maybe even upright? Because kind of up against the wall here.
And recording happens to be one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
it away, Dave. Yeah, so, and that just happened to work out, and here we are today. The story of sound is done.
Actually, interesting note, the first time this lineup of Mythology ever played was before this. It was when we had a show, and Dane was sick,
Yeah, he had the
and
flu.
we
or
needed
something.
another person. So the first time I ever met Dave was that show. And I remember me and you did some songs, just me and you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did some Mythology stuff that you had just learned. I think we may have even gave you music. And I think, yeah, probably. And so, like, yeah, the first time we played as this lineup, it wasn't, it was years before this.
Yeah, before the actual record
Yeah,
was
that's
being
true.
done.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jordan's remembering all the things I can't remember because
Yeah,
I've just been
I
in it
tend
too long.
No, I just remember things. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd for the trivia, and I keep, I have set lists probably from that time too. I'm a hoarder.
Mm.
And so Brynen called me in this huff of like, oh my God, I have this session booked. We have to go. And he's asking me, do you want to do this record? We're going to record it in 4 parts. We're going to do 1 recording session per season for the next year. And it was just so grandiose. I was on board. Yes, let's go.
Did they go in order? Did you record each part like?
We did, yeah.
I think we did, right? Yeah.
We did. The first movement was done in the summertime, July. The second movement was done in October, so the autumn. The third movement was done in the winter. The fourth movement we did in the spring, and it was done by the springtime of
you're right.
23.
Were you playing shows at the same time?
Took a little bit of a
Not
break
really,
from
no.
it.
No,
Okay,
because
so
it was
just-
still COVID times. We were still.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
So
still,
Beatles mode, just
Yeah.
just studio.
Yeah, studio. Yep.
Yeah,
That's cool.
things were still a little odd when it came to live music, at least in my world. I didn't really want to do it as much as I was at that moment. But I also know myself, and as soon as I started recording, I was going to want to do it again.
Yeah, because we never played a show before we made the record. with this
Yeah,
lineup.
that's what I was going to get at, because one
Yeah.
thing that I think is really interesting, especially for you all, is it's always difficult for a band to have member changes, right? You got to learn all the new material as a new member. You got to kind of figure out which songs work as that new band compared to the old band, and then there's more to it than that, of course, on the surface level, but then you add in the layer of what Mythology is, which is a very technical prog rock band, right? You're not talking about like, hey, I got a blues band, you want to come and play.
Right.
These
Right.
are like
Do
some
you wanna do
serious
pop
numbers.
covers? Yeah, for
that-
3
that
hours.
you have,
Where you could just kind of pick them up right away. Yeah, it's
So a record might be a good place to start. I mean, I'd be curious to hear. It wasn't like that with Jordan, right? Because you were playing gigs,
No.
but you had known Mythology's music much
Yeah.
more intimately, right?
More intimate than that, yeah, sure, but more as intimate as it was more as a fan.
Yeah.
So I knew the songs from hearing them live, but I didn't really know how they were structured or anything like that until I had to learn specific ones for the gig. So that's really when the story began. And then with the third album is when, I was an actual band member writing parts for new songs.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then for Dave, right? You guys were doing the album, so it was like all new stuff, which is kind of cool, right? Because you came in and you were able to creatively contribute without having to really learn all the old stuff, I'd assume, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a super interesting way to go about it too, because it was still COVID times. I think I even remember wearing masks to the first recording session, but I think I did. I don't know. Who knows?
I think for the third movement, I think your wife might have gotten.
Oh,
No, what happened?
that's true.
No, yeah, what happened? Yeah, he wasn't there for that one.
So his parts were recorded exactly here, where I'm sitting, right there.
He did that here,
remotely.
So, yeah.
That was the winter.
That's the
movement.
COVID involvement with this.
No, yeah.
Well, and
I wasn't there for the third.
No, there's so
movement.
much more COVID involvement
Right.
in this record. I'll
okay,
get
well.
to that.
I was just about to go into there right there. So
Yeah,
because there were no rehearsals for the recording process. It was all
not with all three of us.
Yeah, it was demos sent out. I would record bass to the demos, send them back, be like, "What do you think of that?" And that was how we rehearsed. But we never actually played the music together until we were pressing record.
In July
Interesting.
of 22. Yeah.
So were the demos
awesome.
vocal and guitar when you do them, Brynen? When you send them around, is it everything? Like,
No, with
It's
this
everything.
with this project, I demoed everything.
Cool.
By means of electric guitar, electric bass, vocals, MIDI, drum loops, programmed to whatever, BPM and time signature. So like fully loaded demos with parts saying, "Do your thing with the drums and bass."
yeah.
Here's the approximation, like we're going for a D7 sharp 9 here. So however you like to approach that, but this is my part. This is what I'm playing. It may vary it may vary slightly from this on my end, but do your thing. Write your own parts to this.
Cool.
I started doing that with the All the Planets Have Aligned record, because I just started getting more tools in which to do that kind of stuff. Like I was like, okay, it's 2018, maybe it's time to put away the 4-track cassette recorder. Like do a little more nicer demos, just in case people leave, in case you want to show this to people. This marked the first time that I demoed the entire thing from start to finish, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Fully loaded.
How do you all like getting those as a band? Is that useful?
Well, it was definitely necessary for this just because of how it went, and it never happened. I mean, he may have made them for himself, but I don't remember getting them from you, Brynen.
It had to have
I
happened
remember
at some point, but
the closest thing to a demo I remember getting from you for Planets was a recording of you doing the guitar riff to Thelafushi when you wrote it. I remember I was in Florida and you sent it to me, and because I had sent you the lyrics, and you're like, "What do you think about this for that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's good." Maybe there was other. I'm just forgetting.
okay,
But,
yeah.
like,
So I was probably still in that previous mode.
Yeah, and
of,
like I said,
demoed
I
it, but it
had
was for
some of
my
these
reference.
on, and this time around, like, it was funny. Like, he did the demoing. He made them when we both got COVID, and that was my first time getting COVID, and it was like 21, right? Yeah.
The end of 21, yeah.
End of 21.
Like New Year's,
And
between
so,
New Year's and Christmas.
literally, we literally got infected with COVID literally at the same time. And so he's like, I remember him calling me. He's like, all right, so since it's like, he's like, so we're stuck in the house, I'm going to make the demos for the new album. And so he does that, and then he sends them to me. So the first time I heard this music, I was sitting in this room where I am right now with COVID, listening to the demos. So the first time I heard this, that's how the demos happened.
I will say, though, I finished them at that time. I think I had been working on them
You
for
probably were working on them
about a
before
year.
that, but
About a year.
yeah. But you're just like, I guess you had more work to do. You're like, I'm gonna finish this shit.
Yeah, like I don't want to give you anything until it's like,
Yeah.
this is the thing, right?
Yeah, but
I'm very
incredibly
cagey
useful
like that sometimes when I'm writing. So
because we couldn't have done this the way we did it without them.
Sure. Yeah. And what do you do when you get it? Do you mute the drums and play to it?
No, so
Or do you just play along?
So no, what I did was, it was more for I was not really listening to it. I didn't mute it, but I wasn't really listening to it because I'm like, this is not what I'm really gonna do. But I'm more listening to the other stuff. And then what I did was I took those and I figured out what I would do. I was like, okay, this is what I think I want to do here. So then the closest thing to a rehearsal that was had for this album was I would meet up with Brynen and we would go, okay, so before each of these sessions, so each season, I'd go to his house and he's like, okay, so these are the songs for this. And we would go through them all.
And take video and send me those.
Yes, so we film everything. But before that, I would say, okay, this is what I'm thinking here. Is there anything that, do you like this? Does this work? And he'd say yes or no and whatever. And so then we work that out. Then we'd go through it. We'd film it all. And I would go home first using that as the guide.
Mm-hmm.
Rehearse to that. And then come to the studio and then seeing what Dave was giving me. And then we made this other thing.
Cool. And so Dave, you get the video and rehearse to that. Like you get the demo too, but
I would get the demos. I got the videos. Brynen also sent me like guitar tabs of what he was doing. So like
primitive charts.
Yeah, I'm scribblings at best. And so I would, so if I wanted to like harmonize a part, I could see exactly what he was playing and all that. But yeah, so that's how we worked that out. There were a few tracks where I did ask him to send me bassless tracks so I could, because like whatever was in the demo, the bass was just getting in the way of my ears. So yeah, there were a few of those, but mostly I would just also ignore what was there and just kind of play.
Yeah, this is really cool. I haven't really heard of anybody doing it like this before. I don't know if it's common. It just hasn't come up, but I think that with like I said, with the quality of musicianship that you all bring, it was an interesting little mystery to me. Because I remember when I listened to the other podcast, you all had mentioned this that you hadn't really met up until then. I was like, damn, how do you put this all together? That's cool. So then you show up, you do your recording. And how long did it take to record each of these movements? How many sessions did you get? Like, how many days?
I think it was, we would do pre-production and, like, tone shaping on, like, Fridays. Like, Friday nights from, like,
Gotcha. And you work with, you said it before, Shane Stanton?
Yes, Shane Stanton over at Glower Studios in Boonton, New Jersey.
Nice.
This would be our third record we did with him. So he's kind of the, he's kind of like the George Martin of the band, if you will. Just he's a good sounding board, and he gets the Mythology aesthetic from the ground up.
Did you send him the demos too? Or is it a surprise for him? Okay.
I sent him the demos, just so he could wrap his head around it. I even sent him this, which we'll talk about later. I sent him the story.
Yeah. No, you could talk about it now. Since you brought it up, why not? It's a good time.
I guess I'll finish the previous thought.
Sure.
So we would do pre-production tone shaping on Friday from, I don't know, like 6 to 10. And then we'd come in Saturday, full day, maybe like 12 to 15 hours, with breaks for coffee and food and whatnot, and do all the basic tracks that the three of us needed to do together in live in a day. Except for movement 3, that was just me and Jordan.
Okay.
Dave could
Sure.
Dave did not appear in that film. But movements 1, 2, and 4 were the three of us looking at each other.
Have you always recorded live?
Yes.
Cool.
I refuse to record.
I can tell
with this band any other way. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I've noticed a huge difference between live recording and the other way.
You feel the energy.
Yeah.
More. And then and usually like maybe a week later, Shane would send me the basic tracks, and I would do my overdubs here at my house.
Sure.
So guitar, whatever MIDI needed to be on it, and vocal.
Nice.
Yeah, we did all the background vocals there. I did the cue chord there. We did some other stuff there too. I can't remember what else.
Yeah, we did a lot of the auxiliary stuff, the harmony vocals,
all the backing vocals,
and the vocal stacks.
We did some here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
we recorded
Yeah.
a little bit at Dave's house too. Dave did some violin and some of his vocals there, right where he's sitting, and then Jordan did an electronic piece at his house.
Oh yeah, from here.
So yeah, it was an all hands on deck. You know, it's like
Yeah, for
Shane's actual studio, and then the three of ours home studios were involved in this behemoth.
Who coordinates all that? Is that Shane's doing, or you all say like, we don't need another day. Let's just like, Jordan will do this piece here.
That's
we're gonna go
my
to
call.
Dave's. That's your call?
That's my
Okay.
call. So
Cool.
it's my job as producer, or in this case co-producer. What needs to be done with the four of us human beings in the same facility at once, and then anything else I can do at my leisure.
That I really like that. That sounds like a very not only economical method, but knowing, just from reading and listening to your stuff, knowing that you're methodical about everything, you can sit and do your vocals for 15 hours if you need to, or whatever. Work on your solo for one song forever.
And I did like a lot of the comping. I try not to comp too much. There's one solo, I won't say what it is, but there's a lot of comping on it.
Yeah.
But usually it's like, like if any, like 2 or 3 comps together. But I try to keep it as real as I can. It's very methodical because the four of us have so much going on that like I can't just be in the studio for like 4 weeks straight. Like I got a house, I got a wife, I got a kid. I have other means of income that I have to protect, because that's largely why this happens. So, it's you have to be strategic, because when you're making records, the current state of things, it's probably not going to return that much, from the initial investment. So, why not do things economically, right?
You've always been very good at organization, always in the band. Like
Project
someone
manager.
who's no, that's really how he functions. And as someone who has come into the band, and I think Dave would agree, it's just there's always a plan. There's always great communication. We all know what we're doing, and it's something that I personally appreciate, because we never have to wonder what the fuck is going on. We always kind of know well in advance.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I feel like I'm such a goober half the time with communications.
No, it's listen, bro. I've been in so many bands where we're just like, what the fuck?
Did I
is
say
happening?
that right?
It's like, what are we doing? What? So,
I've been in bands where it's a little nightmarish with the communication.
I'm gonna tell you, but like the thing I was gonna say too, to just addendum to what he was saying, it really, when I heard we were gonna making this record was a really great challenge for me, because because of the way we made it, I couldn't overthink anything.
That's true.
And usually I am, the king of that. Where
That's
I will
that's a
just
killer when you're in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, for me, it was because of the way we used to do things. We used to rehearse the songs ad nauseum, before we went into the studio. So by that time, when just months of doing that, you had, okay, this is exactly how this fill is going to be, and it's going to be like this and this, because you'd been doing it for months. This, we couldn't do it that way. So, and then I was, had my idea of what it was going to be, but I knew once Dave got in the room, it was going to become something different. And we had to do it to know it. So
Yeah.
it's such a great thing for me because I know it's like the performance that I gave is really just a lot just based on what Dave was giving me and just the intensity of what was going on in the room. I had my idea of what it was going to be, but then it was really, birthed there. So it's very, very cool thing for me.
Yeah, that's like, I feel weird, like lame saying this, but I'm the goober right now. I don't have a better word, but that's a special thing, right? Like, cause
No, it is.
it's like you've set everything up. I feel like it's like, it's how you'd expect any of our heroes to approach this, right? Our music, it's like, yeah, we're like showing up. I'm using the Beatles again, right? But like, I'll think, or like the band or somebody, showing up at like, the Malibu studio and being like, all right, we all have our shit going on. Now we're here. We've already had the demos. But we're here live for a reason. Like we're here. We're recording live. We're gonna get that magic out of the room. We did enough prep. Like it's cool.
You got to do your homework.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, but no,
I
it
like
just-
that
it was
process.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and it was cool.
it's like a creation of that process. That's what this piece is, and it's cool. It's definitely we're talking about their latest album, by the way. Just to break the
Copy here.
the third wall or whatever they say. Oh, cool. Yeah, you have the copy right there. Nice. Yeah, the story of sound. And it's a concept album, right? So the concept. Why don't you give us the concept?
So maybe some more black coffee. No, back in the early days of Mythology, there was always a storytelling element to it all, going as far back as the Sailor's Tale, which was in my mind the first true mythology composition. But I had always put it on my bucket list to write an actual concept album, not just a song with a concept that sits next to another song in sequence on a record. I wanted to do something that had one, in the way that Brynen does it, but one unifying narrative throughout the whole thing. One, because I just like those types of albums.
Yeah, we love those kind of albums.
And two, I just wanted to see if I could do it. Because I was like, I'm going to veer off into some esoteric garble, and I think I'm going to get off track a little bit. And that certainly happened, but I had weird and unique ways of kind of bringing it back into the thing. So I think I first had the first inklings of this concept came right around when Mythology 3 came out.
Yeah, that's what I remember first hearing about it.
So like the latter half of 2015. I remember thinking, what's the most grandiose concept album idea you could possibly think of? Like there's nothing to, there's no barrier here. There's no nothing. The guy that invented music. It's like how much
music.
Yeah, I had some idiotic name for it at first, but I decided to call it. I think I called it the magic or the sound instead. So I'm like, it's a concept album about the man who invented music about itself on a concept album. So I was like, yeah, that'll do. That's pretty good. You know, if we're thinking on a large canvas here. But then I didn't want it to be too serious. I wanted it to be more like a Joe's Garage sort of thing, like by Frank Zappa, where in which music becomes illegal, which is a very grandiose sort of Orwellian kind of topic. But this one kind of pokes fun at messiahs so the man named Lord Force Blorgerstein invents music in his chambers.
Have you seen this guy's chin?
I haven't seen my chin in years.
He's got a very, very nice chin.
Yeah, and he invents music, and I believe he calls it the magic, which is kind of represented by the track Gnostical Turpitude, which is the end of the first movement. That is his epiphany. That weird, like Tim Burton-esque sort of like, oh my god, that thing in 9/8. You guys know what I'm talking about. You just want it to end. It's like, I want to go home.
There it is.
Yeah, that's the one. That curious little thing.
That's the creation of music.
It's the creation of the sound. And he eventually becomes exalted and worshipped because of it, which would be what the second movement represents. So songs like The Sound.
He's on the single artwork too. So I guess I have seen his chin.
Yeah.
My wife Rachel did that, and I said, you gotta make that chin like.
Chin.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for that, Brynen? I don't know. Where did that come from?
Lord Force Blorgerstein?
The chin.
Oh, I wanted to...
Douglas, kind of chin. Yeah.
Yeah, like a chicken bone chin.
Nice check, cleft,
Yeah.
You're the best chin ever, Kirk Douglas. Come on now.
I think it was just my my lifelong love for satire and
Okay.
where satire meets music and things like Monty Python and Mel
It's very
Brooks.
vaudeville too, yeah.
Yeah, and it has this like, this is absolutely ridiculous quality to it, but I'm saying it with such fervor that it's like you can't not. And I don't know, I think one of my heroes growing up was kind of like Bugs Bunny, where he could kind of
you are very Bugs Bunny, aren't you?
He could kind of like get away with anything in like the most comedic and like you said, vaudevillian way possible. But he was
these really weird things.
Yeah, and he could do really bizarre things, but he was also not innocent in a lot of, like, he was also kind of a jerk off.
Yeah, he was a dick. He was clearly a dick.
He was always throwing a wrench in the machine. I think that's
fucking people's days up.
Yeah, but like in a cheeky way. So that's where the lyrical humor came from. Definitely Mel Brooks, Zappa.
Very Life of Brian.
Life of Brian, yeah, where this regular dude gets thought of as the Messiah, but it was really, Jesus was in the manger next door. So he's stuck in this whole life of being chased around by people worshiping him. But then I also wanted it to have this like deeply personal side to it as well. So within this like almost biblical narrative, it zooms out a lot and it kind of goes into Brynen's perspective. As I guess then I was, maybe 36, a 36-year-old man with, with a family and other means of income, other than music. So it's kind of the parable of the life of Brynen in a lot of ways. Although those parts are more dark and scary. So for example, like here's a droopy one, which opens up the second movement. That's me waking up to an alarm clock. Like, oh God, no, not again. What the hell did I do to deserve this? You know, it's only Tuesday. I have 4 more days of this shit, and I have guitar lessons at night, and then I gotta, you know, have family time on the weekends and like be a fucking human. You know? So it's like me just staring at the ceiling like with that cacophony. You know, so it definitely goes into like some of the more mental health struggles that I've had in my life. That being one of them, just like staring at the ceiling blankly, wondering what the hell I did to deserve this life, you know. But then there's also really funny parts like Mr. Kukulabanza.
Right, I was going to say that.
That's my cat. And he's, in a very Bugs Bunny type way, he steals the show.
He does.
Yeah, it's almost like he takes the camera and says, "Hey guys, I'm a cat, so I'm totally narcissistic."
Very Deadpool in that sense. Yeah.
It's meta, right? He steals you out of the story of Lord Force Blorgerstein and says, "Well, I'm a narcissist, so you're going to have to listen to what I say for the next 6 minutes or so." And
Two parts.
Yeah, listen to cat stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see, and then the third movement. I have to look at the track listing here. Yeah, that goes into family life and like romance, and then conception, and then the delirium of having a child, which can really throw you for a loop if you're not ready for it.
Who's
so
ready
something
for
like
it? Who's ready? Nobody's ready for that.
Never ready for it.
That's not a thing.
So something like Bartleby Pennyfeather is me like hallucinating from like sleep psychosis, because it's like I seriously think I'm dying from not sleeping. And there's the kid watching something stupid, you know, like the Wiggles on TV. The Wiggles are actually pretty good, but as far as children's music goes, it's pretty digestible. But yeah, it's just me like losing my mind in that like sleep deprived, like I work too much and now I have to be up for the next 12 hours and all I want to do is sleep. But there's that precious little thing I have called a son. And then in the story, and then it kind of zooms back into the narrative. So, what I just said about the third movement, it runs parallel. So my life and Lord Forrest Blorgerstein's life are analogous in that way. He falls in love. He has a child. Bartleby Pennyfeather is the priest, or for lack of a better term, the deacon or the priest that's singing a sermon about Lord Forrest Blorgerstein. You know, so it's like an ecclesiastic piece, if you will. And then in flagrante delicto, which of course is Latin for "you were caught doing the nasty." The woman that he loves is he finds her with another man. I know, intrigue, and he kills him. He kills both of them. Or no. I'm sorry. I haven't slept in a while. No, he kills the dude, and
Sure.
He gets put on trial, put to death.
Put on trial, yeah.
Yep. And then let's see, fourth movement, and that's the story of Lord Forrest Blorgerstein. I think he's beheaded or something ridiculous like that. I'd have to read the story again. The fourth movement zooms out for the last time, and it's like it's me again. So it's, well, now that big old story's out of me, like, what do I do now? You know, so it's kind of like me living the non-artist life that I have to live sometimes. and getting lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, emotion-wise. Just the apathy, the depression, the anxiety about things that we all feel. I think we all feel from time to time.
Nope. Never anxiety, never depression. Nope.
No. Artists are never depressed. Inherently. And yeah, things like the low way and yeah, the sky is falling, and the low way is me having the ideation of just driving my car off a cliff. Intrusive thought. Condensation is me regrouping myself. And then all that lives is the culmination of the story of sound. It's, hey, it's going to be okay. You know, like, no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. And that that mantra at the end, which still makes me it makes me tear up a lot. But yeah, all that lives was born to die. Please don't let this pass you by. It's a one-time thing, so make it count for everyone. And it just repeats ad infinitum. That's me coming to terms with having to be an artist, and having to be a family man, and having to be an office dude because I need to put food on the table. And knowing that it's going to be okay. The end.
Sick.
So go ahead and edit that whole thing out and just finish it with this. We made a record.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was cool.
Did you share that story before you started the record, or is it okay? So you
I
all are
definitely
walking
sent
in.
it to these two and Shane,
Sure,
whether they read
that's
it or
cool.
not. I know it's like,
Oh, yeah.
you want to see this novel I'm working on? You know, it's kind of like it's kind of an imposing thing.
No, you have
I mean,
to know,
I
right?
had to know it. I mean, I had to know what I was working on, you know, and because I'm, you know, I think I could speak for Dave too. I mean, we're just nerds for this kind of music, you know, so it's like, you know, that's why, you know, and for me, it was like, I really can't believe it took us this long to make a fucking concept album, but like, because we loved them so much is what I mean. And so just having that, you know, was essential to me, you know, just to understand it, and to, if I have to put, you know, be a part of it, I have to understand it. So it's like watching the film. We're helping, you know, no, actually we're trying to create the film, but you're reading the scripts for the film.
Yeah,
Trying to read
reading the
of the
script,
film.
right? Yeah, and it's like you all are scoring the film
Right. Yeah.
that doesn't even exist, because the
Right.
score is the film,
Right.
which
yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah.
So I'd assume I was hoping that you would have known it.
Oh yeah.
Which is also cool, because sometimes lyrics are kind of kept secretive, right? And there
Sure.
are elements of that, but it's really cool to have the concept and to like know what you're playing at the same time too, and to kind of
Yep.
all be rallied around that story. It's epic too. I really dig it.
Yeah, and it really reminded me of things that I remember showing Brian, and like me and Brian went to see Peter Gabriel in like 2010,
Long
I
time
think it
ago,
was. And so I remember showing him Peter Gabriel 1, and me and him really getting off on
Car, yeah.
yeah, Car, and like you know, what's the Morbid the
Morbin the
Burgermeister.
Burgermeister.
So
yeah,
like
the
we
opening
I
track.
remember us really talking about that. So a lot of the stuff on this record, I had that in mind, that song, because it's very similar in certain ways, just in terms of like there's this creepy Renaissance feel that is in that song, and um, parts of it remind me of like Son of Frankenstein or something, and I had that in my head a lot when I was tracking, just remembering the imagery that I associate with that song.
Yeah, but it's also very theater. You know.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say what I dig about it is it it could it feels like it's of a caliber of all of these bands that we're talking about that come out with these concept albums. It stands alone in its own unique style. You all have been playing. Well, Dave is newer to the mix, but there's an established mythology, right?
Sure.
Pun only slightly intended. But there's already like the mythology of the band put together, right? And now you're coming out with this thing that kind of touches on a bunch of the different elements that you already established musically, and you're putting it on a concept. I think it stands as a pretty solid piece of work. It's really cool. Have you all played it live yet?
Not the whole thing.
Not the whole
Not the whole
thing,
thing.
but I'd love to play the whole thing one day. But yeah, we started playing pieces of it.
Sweet. Like the more song pieces, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
The more like excerpts and things that would translate better live.
Sure.
I think we did a whole movement, did we not? Maybe, or close to one.
I think we did the first one.
Yeah, I think we did like the first movement fully, and then a lot of pieces the second. And
Yeah, because we did Gnostic Turpitude, but it was
yeah,
like
we did.
a
So,
live
yeah,
arrangement with loops and
yeah, so yeah, we did pretty much a whole movement essentially.
When you all play, do you play like how long are your sets? Do you just play that, or is it like so? So I guess my question is, did Dave learn old stuff too now? How has that been?
Yep. No, it's great.
Yeah, it's been great. there's a lot. There's a lot. Some of the older tunes and some of the newer tunes. There's a lot of arrangement to it, and yeah, there's a lot to pick up and try to remember for sure.
Yeah. And so that was one of my other general questions that I was going to ask you all, because it's probably a little like late into the podcast to be bringing this up. Maybe I should have started it in the beginning, but or said it in the beginning. But one of the things that I really appreciate about you all is when I watched your live shows. I haven't seen you live yet. I'll come see you one time. Might take a year, but I'll be there.
I got you.
But the video you have online is dope. Like I feel like one of the surprises I had after I listened to this record a few times, then I went back and I listened to, just because that's what I dig, I listened to the 2 live albums. That was like the first thing I checked out. And that's how I could tell you all were recording live, but I still really like those live albums. And then when I saw some video too, I was like, this is a cool thing. Like I like the translation between the two. There's not like that much of a difference in terms of like what I'm expecting and what I'm hearing. But then I was like, damn, I'm impressed by that, because these songs are complicated and you all are remembering all this shit, and I have no idea how you do that. Like I am a musician, but not like that. I don't think I could remember all this stuff.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we would spend entire nights of rehearsal on single songs sometimes. Just stuff like that. Like with these longer songs, it requires it.
But Dave didn't have
I appreciate
that, right?
you saying.
No, he didn't.
Oh yeah, sure, of course, yeah. So Dave didn't have that, and he's jumping in, so that's hard, right?
Well, but I did have live recordings, so I would just sit in this very chair and, play that live recording 20 times in a row,
Sure.
So he did his own version of it.
I do appreciate you saying that you liked the live albums too, because part of me was like, should I put this out, or is this just flailing at this point? Am I just like farting out content at this point, for the sake of whatever, the endorphin rush. But thank you. We'll probably do a few more of those.
Do them
from different eras of the group.
Especially since you're already putting out the video, right? And I feel like putting an album name on it or whatever, Live Volume 3 or whatever, it gives you like a
Mythology
little
Lives.
yeah, it actually takes it a step away from what we're talking about with this content factory, right? You're more just like,
Yeah.
sure,
It's a
you can't put
series.
out every show. I mean, on Bandcamp or something you could, but
Yeah, you
yeah,
could,
like if it's a
like-
good
Yeah,
show.
like Fish could probably
Yeah,
do that.
like I said, I just
Yeah.
saw Fish. They do that.
We're
yeah.
not Fish.
Like I was
we're
gonna
not
say,
at that level.
I'm biasing it. I'm wearing it. It's weird. I wore this on the past 2 episodes, but randomly, it's just the shirt that was in my laundry. You know, like I'm saying, yeah, bro, put out all your live stuff as I have my Grateful Dead shirt on.
Zappa was pretty compulsive in that.
Yeah,
sense,
no,
too.
exactly. But those albums you really dig, right? Like I'm not even super into prog. I could be, right? Like I just haven't gone down that road too much yet. I've done a little Zappa though, and I love Bongo Fury, right? And you have the live recordings on that album just are great.
There's like almost no editing on it either. It's just
Yeah.
a couple nights. You might have a splice here and there, but
Yeah,
that's
I
like
was happy
8
to,
dudes doing that in real time is insane.
it was totally insane. Yeah, I was very proud of myself when my son was like 2, because if I asked him to sing Muffin Man, he would sing the Zappa one instead of the other one.
Yeah, not do
I
the
knew what
Muffin
I
Man,
was
right?
doing, but I still was like,
Oh yeah.
It's
No,
funny. My son
only you
Ryder
all will
used to
get it.
dance to. My son Ryder used to dance to "Peaches in Regalia."
oh, nice.
And I
yeah,
was like,
exactly. You got to teach him
I've
young.
succeeded as a parent.
Yeah. Yep.
Cover that song actually pretty well.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I dig Fish's covers. I haven't gotten too deep into Fish, but I went to see them. I've only seen them once, and they did No Quarter by Zeppelin, and I was
Wow, that
like,
must have been really
oh,
cool.
shit. Yeah.
Which
Really
show
cool
was that?
things
Was
with
that Atlantic City?
No, it was at a MSG.
Is it Miss G?
It was a while ago, yeah. It was a good show for
Wow,
me.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a top 3 Zeppelin song for me for sure.
Yeah. for
Same. Same. And I'm like, I like Fish, but I'm a weird Fish fan, right? Like I like a
I am
couple of
too.
their albums. You know, like I like Farmhouse and Billy Breathes.
Sure. Oh, okay.
You know?
Alright.
Okay.
I like Joy. You know, I like weird things from them too in terms of studio stuff. I'm more of a live guy, but I've only seen them like 4 times. But
Yeah.
They're
I
okay.
would see him again. I
I can't
saw
get
Trey
into it
play
personally.
once.
they're
He was
great.
good. Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. It's
It was funny.
Yeah.
The guys there were like, "Oh, this is your first Fish show. Like, dude, you're gonna be here like every show from now on." You know, some randos next to me or whatever. I'm like,
Right,
I'm
of
not.
course.
I'm not.
The
dude.
faithful.
Like,
Yeah.
It's
like,
your gateway show.
yeah. Like I tour around watching like Pixies. Like
Okay.
that's the band I follow, and they play the same songs every time the same way. You know.
Yeah, I have bands like that too. Flaming Lips, like for example, I've seen it like 14
Sure.
times.
Ween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Ween.
So good.
Ween is my favorite jam band for sure. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
I've yet to see Ween. I got into them during COVID, and then I'm a parent now, but they're like on the top list of me to go
They're
see
good.
a band.
Yeah, I saw them
Rough,
once.
yeah, like one of my favorite bands in high school for sure.
Nice,
Very, very influential
influential. Yeah.
to what
Oh,
I
yes.
do. Yeah.
For sure.
Even for me now, like since 2020, like after getting into them, I feel like Ween has like unlocked a whole area of just like the being able to just be like, fuck it. For me, it's probably going to be good if you say fuck it and just do what you want, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always good when you do that. I find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did want to mention that too. I remember heating up this coffee before this podcast and being like, "Oh, remember to say that," and then and here we are. So, yeah, I think it's just more important to do whatever you think is right artistically, and
Yeah.
whatever happens. There's literally no reason to kowtow or dilute your image or your vision just because of what some unknown listener might think, because
Right.
that wasn't your
Yeah.
audience anyway.
Yeah,
That's real.
totally. It's very brown of you, very ween of you.
Just painting the
you
town
know?
brown.
No, but I actually haven't thought about that in such a succinct way before. But a lot of the bands that you all have mentioned before, and maybe we should gather those up because we haven't talked about them. Yeah, like Zappa, right? Like, you know,
the most uncompromising artist ever.
Why don't we talk a little bit about influences? I know you all do that each time.
It's important, though.
But I think it is. I want to ask it in a little bit of a different way, right? And so we talked about kind of the formulation of mythology in the timeline, but it could be cool to hear about the other projects that Jordan and Dave had been involved in and how those influences switch on and off between the band. Jordan, you mentioned before how you kind of like to envision different drummers when you're playing here.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other projects? And you could also mention, of course, the mythology influences as well. And then Dave, of course.
Yeah, so I guess the first one, so I kind of grew up for the first bunch of years of my life. I was like a very conservative Christian, so I went to private school. That's where I met Dane. So I was, singing in choirs growing up, playing in concert bands, stuff like that. But then I did a lot of playing throughout the tri-state area and overseas and stuff. Doing like, for all intensive purposes, like, Christian rock music. So that was but I learned a lot about playing with people, and I got to play with, people from all over the world and just very high caliber musicians. So getting to know how to play in a group, how to improvise, stuff like that. But then when I got into, out of high school and stuff, I was playing, I guess my first secular band was a band called And the Zombie, where I had to be the lead singer because they were just like, well, neither of us can sing, and you can. So you either sing or we don't have a band. And so I said, okay. So I was a singer behind a drum kit. And ever since then, like, it's like, again, 2007-ish time, 2006, 2007. And then people have been making me do it ever since. But a lot of that stuff was based on a lot of the classic rock, because a lot of my favorite band is the Beatles. So, I grew up listening to all my parents' music, and I didn't get into current music until I was a little bit older. And I was more like punk rock and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff was based more in like Brynen, how would you describe And the Zombie?
There was punk elements.
Sure,
but there was also a pop element. So it had this, and I don't mean it as a condescending thing, but it was like it was a little bit of like that garage band thing.
Yeah,
but with
definitely.
this like accessible sort of punk / new wave thing. Like if we're talking new wave in like the biblical sense,
right?
Like Talking Heads, not new wave like Blondie, let's say.
Yeah.
Punk light, where it wasn't Dead Kennedys, it was more accessible and radio friendly.
I liked a lot of Green Day, he liked a lot of that, and we like a lot, like a lot of the popular. Yeah, so it was that stuff. So there's always a piece of that in everything that I do, like this, like, but like, that's like a lot of the stuff I was coming from previously, and then just playing in the other cover projects that I would do, or learning some other more rock and roll based stuff, original stuff that some of the other people I sit in with. That's always an influence too. But
what are the cover projects? Like, what kind of music are they?
One would be much more geared towards like 50s and 60s music.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is much more 70s, 80s, 90s.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of those are kind of the wheelhouses in terms of that. But so a lot of that stuff, that's always operating in the back of my brain. But with Mythology, when I joined them and started, writing for them and just performing and just with them, I took a lot of, certain of the influences, the drummer influences I always had kind of get to come out more because I had to do work in Anazami. I couldn't be Keith Mooning it up in that band because I just had to, do so much. But in Mythology, I could be a lot, just be the drummer. And then, I would sing later on, but, primarily being the drummer allowed me to kind of embrace my inner John Theodore and Keith Moon and but also a lot of Mitch Mitchell because I really like the way he plays and it's a very jazzy element to him that I very much bring to Mythology. And but also with this record, like it always happens. Like I think I've talked about this before, but I usually have certain people in mind when I'm approaching the project based on what the project is. And this one, there's always John Theodore with Mythology because he's just my guy. And but this one was, I remember when me and Brynen were rehearsing, doing our little rehearsals for one of the movements, and he's like, "Think Pink Floyd here." And I was like, "Okay." And so yeah, there was a lot of Nick Mason ended up being in some of these parts, and um, so like there's and like certain records are different, but yeah, it's always kind of like that's kind of like the influences that I was drawing from for sure.
Sick. How about you, Dave?
I've played in a lot of groups over the years. Geez, I guess I grew up studying classical music because I played in the orchestra as a youngster. Studied jazz a lot. Got out of college. I played with a Latin group for a while, which I don't know if you've listened to much of like salsa or timba or whatever, but like all the rhythmic parts are so incredibly locked and dense and historic. And there's so much history to learn going into it. Anyways, and so I liked all that like complicated stuff, and then I played with this one group called The Flux that describes himself as being an Afro-prog band. So it kind of has all that rhythmic element to it, and then also, the songwriters in that band really love, Fish, The Dead, and all that kind of stuff, So very jammy, all over the map, And then I toured the country with like a more or less Americana bluegrass rock band for 10 years. So very much in like the jam band circuit,
Yeah, what was the band?
That was Dead Winter Carpenters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so getting loose is kind of my bread and butter, getting crazy. Let's extend this part. All right, let's extend this part. Now let's extend this part. Yeah, so that's I guess that's more or less where I come from.
And then when you were coming into Mythology, how did you not necessarily that you're going to channel anything, right? You have to listen to Dane, his parts that he put together. Are you trying to bring your own, like, how do you balance that between putting Dave in there and playing what Dane was playing before?
Right. Well, so first we did all the first things I did with Mythology with this record.
Yeah.
So I learned how to play with the band before I learned any of the old material.
And so those were all, like, you didn't even, were you trying to play, like, in the style of what was before, or are you just approaching it like, I'm just going to listen to what Jordan and Brynen are playing, and I'm going to just play what I hear in my head?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly
okay.
right. And then when we do play the older material, the parts that I play are definitely informed by Dane, for sure. but I don't necessarily try to play it note for note.
Sure. And I mean, that makes sense though, right? Because based on your background, right? Like you said, you know, as we're extending out these parts or whatever, it comes from the jamming, right? Like it's just figuring out what that piece is. It's really just like it's not much different, I'd assume, right? Like it's just sequenced pieces of things that could be extended out into a jam if you're going to keep going, right?
Sequence pieces of things. Yes, that very much.
Yeah.
So, you know, the bass part is a melody. It's not the melody, it's a melody, and it can counter the melody, it can mimic the melody, it can double the guitar part. There's different kinds of things that a bass part can do. And so I try to just balance, you know, phrase by phrase what it's doing. And sometimes that's what Dane wrote, and sometimes that's what I wrote, and sometimes that's what Brynen wrote, you know, whatever.
Yeah, some of the things are composed unisons and or harmonies between sometimes all three of us, which I always considered like the fourth instrument in the group, is like when we're all doing that same manic sort of unison together.
That'll be a hallmark of this band for sure.
Right, things like
every record we do that at least a few times.
Yeah, things like Droopy on the new record would be like one of the latest examples where it's like that we're all
I love that, by the way. Like those moments do stick out where you're just like it kind of
meticulously composed.
It pulls you back in too, right? And that doesn't happen in things like the Dead as often. It happens,
right? For sure,
it does happen, but it's not as tight typically, or as well. There are parts, but you all do your own flavor of it that has something a little heavier than what I'm usually listening to, which I kind of dig. Cool. And then I have one last. You already touched on it a little bit, but I'd be remiss if I didn't make it open ended, which is one thing that I think is pretty important to the aesthetic of the band is, you know, you're setting up, like we said, the score of and all of them are right like that, right? Like all the songs, even on the older albums, like you said, they're very cinematic, right? It's prog rock, and you're taking that angle. Not always, but typically, right? There's you're pulling someone into this world. The art actually has the album artwork actually holds like a lot of artistic. Like you're saying, the fourth instrument, right? Like it's like it's a brush stroke in the artwork. So like, how does that come about for the albums? You don't have to go through each one, but like typically you had mentioned your wife did the single.
She does a lot of the aggregate artwork, singles. Or she did the actual cover for the jazz record that we did in 2020.
Cool.
But yeah, I always loved a really good album cover, and you know, things like In the Court of the Crimson King,
sure,
things like Ritual de lo Habitual by Jane's Addiction, like iconic, you know, with the threesome that's happening, but made out of clay, you know. Nevermind by Nirvana, you know, it's not as important as the music, but like something like Dark Side of the Moon. Like one of the most simple things you could possibly see is like the light going through the prism. But what would that record be without that cover?
Right. That's what you're picturing in your head.
Major piece of it would be missing. Yeah.
Right. It's not as important as the music. The music is of paramount importance, but I always loved a good album cover, and like Roger Dean was a good example, like who did all like the Yes album covers. Like Relayer is beautiful. It's just beautiful to look at.
A lot of theirs are like that.
Fragile.
Topographic Oceans, Fragile,
Yeah. So to me, it's always been very important to kind of paint the imagery of another world, because that's what this group is. It's almost like and you know, like 6 records deep, it's and plus all the aggregate live stuff, it's almost become its own little self-contained universe. And so we have this a very abstract. I always preferred abstract and or cartoonish because A, my favorite album covers are like that, and B, I think it represents what this universe is. A universe different than the physical one that we live in.
It's the MCU, Mythology Cinematic Universe.
Hell yeah, brother.
So who do you do the art?
Oh,
who
no,
makes it?
I'm not that good.
So like, who did it? Yeah, I was wondering, like, who did it for Story of Sound?
That was this woman who I met through a mutual friend. Her name was Julianne Marcow. She's down in Asbury Park. I met her from playing in another band called Fair Panic, which I did up until recently. And I saw that she, her partner was in a band, I believe they're called Candy Cavity, down in Asbury Park. And just by peeping their stuff, I was like, oh, okay, well, this woman does their stuff, and I kind of like it because it's very graphic novel-esque. So there's that cartoon element. But then we started talking via emails and texts and stuff. And we discovered that, Julianne and I discovered that we both, for some abnormal reason, had the same inexplicable sudden interest in quantum physics. For no reason. And it's like, what if we made an album cover that represented Planck Epoch and the creation of everything, good, bad, and ugly, but mostly beautiful. So that's what the Story of Sound album cover sort of represents, is the Big Bang.
Sick.
And that teensy weensy little moment, Planck Epoch, which is one of the last tracks on the record.
One of my favorite.
That's an all out brawl out. I love that tune. But yeah, it's the beginning of everything, So
Yeah.
what else could be more grandiose than the beginning of everything?
No, it's super fitting. Yeah, I think this is a good time to call it. This has been great, though. It's been a really, really informative conversation. I've dug it, and thanks for taking the time. This is it's been fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I forgot. You guys. Oh, you're welcome. You have to give plugs before we go. Where can people find you?
Let's see. Let me take this one
I'll
now.
I'll put the links in the description too.
Gotcha. Well, the official website, which will be revamped at some point once I get some money, wearemythology.com. We're on facebook.com/mythologybandwm, as in West Milford, where the town in New Jersey where it all started. So Facebook/mythologybandwm. We are on YouTube. You'll see a nice black and white picture of the three of us looking up at you. And we're on Instagram. Mythology Band, no WM. So that's where we're most active. We have a Vimeo too.
Bandcamp.
Yeah, we're on Bandcamp too. Okay, here. Yeah,
Nice.
Mythology 3 3.bandcamp.com if you want to listen, support. And we're on Spotify, Apple.
All the things.
Everything.
All of the things.
All of the streaming services, including Bandcamp. Where
And we're
if you'd
playing
like,
a
you
show
can
on
knock
the
us.
29th.
That's true. We're playing a show in at Dingbats
Dingbats.
in Clifton on the 29th. I don't know when this is coming out, so it might be anachronous at that point.
It might be, but
Yeah,
do
that's
you
fine.
put your
Either way.
shows on?
Well, you missed a
post them
good
on-
show.
Yeah, exactly. You post them on Instagram usually, though, so if folks want to check out, you all are playing, I'm assuming, trying to actively play. So if people want to go and check you out live.
Yep. Trying to
Do
book
it.
as much as we can.
We'll see how I do. That's next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see how I do.
Yeah.
I had an incident today where I cut off a part of my finger. I don't know if you can see my. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yep. I got some new woodworking tools.
Dun.
Oh, Dave.
That's like a nightmare of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
literally
bro.
like a triggering nightmare
And
of mine.
trauma in general.
I know.
That's my worst fear.
I feel like such a dumb
Well,
person.
yeah, and I hope you can play. Like,
Well, if nothing,
you know.
if nothing else, I'll just use a pick.
Oh, it's that hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm
That's
like
the Frodo
reversed,
hand.
right? Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
right hand, so it's my, picking hand.
Picking hand.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So worst case scenario, I'll just use a pick. But
Yeah. I mean, my first band, we had a bassist, and he was lefty, or not lefty. He did that to his left hand, and he couldn't play anymore. Well, we were in high school too. Like, I wonder now if I'm like 30, if I'm like, I'll play. You know, like, it's like I've been doing this for 20 years now or whatever. I'm not giving up over losing my finger.
well, wait, I didn't lose a finger,
I know, you just nicked it. Yeah.
but I did
I was
plane
just
some
taking
it
Django
to the next
right
level.
off. It was pretty fun.
Oof. Yeah.
He Tony Iommi'd it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
He didn't
Jerry.
he didn't quite
Yeah,
Django
or
it.
He didn't
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
Jerry it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Or
on
Phil
that
Keaggy.
note, Dave has to get to the hospital.
Thank you for doing this, Dave. Jeez, I didn't
Yeah.
even know.
Yeah, is this
He's
over
got it
yet?
on-
I gotta
Dude,
go to
you
the
gotta
hospital,
go.
guys.
Things to do.
No, it's not. It's really not that bad. I just
Yeah,
We just cut the tip off.
just the dramatic. I mean, kind of just like a little bit of the skin right here,
Yeah.
Okay.
It still sucks.
Ugh.
Any cut sucks.
So lesson learned:
We're fine. Yeah.
don't hold the thing and press it on the hand plane. Just don't do it. All right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, good move, Dave.
So you get a lot more with mythology. You get life lessons.
Mm-hmm. And woodworking lessons. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Rich Sony podcast.
All right, folks.
Thanks a lot.